YouTube.
No, I can hear you clearly.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad you can hear us. I was getting worried there that you're not able to hear us.
Something was wrong with my microphone. I didn't allow it
Oh, okay. All right.
while using this app. Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. Perfect. I'm going to mute you and you know what to do. If you want to comment, you can raise your hand. Okay. All right. Welcome to a heartfelt episode of NMP Talk Show, where we dive into the, you know, not often spoken stories about our relationships. And today we explore a universal yet uniquely challenging topic: sibling forgiveness. Why is forgiveness among siblings so hard? So today we want to explore this topic and see how we can, get assistance from professionals on how to win over this pandemic. We are honored to welcome a distinguished voice in mental health into our show, and this is Dr. Nicole. Dr. G, welcome to our talk show.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Oh yes, thank you for honoring our invitation. So, Doctor, just tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into this discussion of ours.
Perfect. So, as a board certified psychiatrist, I actually specialize in helping people lose weight, specifically people who are on GLP-1 who don't want to fast, but actually want to use insulin resistant weight loss strategies to be able to achieve those weight loss goals. But the secret is everything is mental health. Helping people navigate those relationships that we're going to be talking about today is a key part of helping them be able to achieve those weight loss goals that they want, because they don't really realize how that actually impacts their ability to calm, soothe, and be able to get the goals, not just mental health goals and weight loss goals, but all those goals they have in their life.
Oh, awesome. That's a beautiful introduction there. So now we know how to steer our conversation. Every now and then, maybe we'll talk about weight loss. Yeah. Which is the effect sometimes of the topic that we're talking about. So, Doc, let's jump into this topic. I want to start our conversation with a question to you. How does death of a parent commonly shift loyalties or power dynamics among siblings, and how can we recognize when those shifts are fueling conflict?
Mhm. And I think kind of breaking, because this is actually a quite complex question. I think really it starts off with, how does a parent passing, how does that affect each individual person, first of all? And really, I feel like your parents are like your first like life source. They're your first kind of connection to the world. Your parents' job is to keep you safe. And unfortunately, even as they age, no matter what age gap that parent has between you, 67, they're still viewed as that like protector, and losing that protector is devastating to anyone. And so when we think about grieving the loss of a parent, it's really grieving a part of ourself that's now passed. And how do we like take that thing that a parent represented to us and allow ourselves to kind of pull that internally to us to be able to calm, soothe, and heal? It's a whole new skill set. And then we add our relationship with, if we have another parent that's still living, plus the relationship with our siblings that get involved in that, and taking all those little pieces and trying to like meld them together and reform a person of who we are can be really challenging. I think this is what leads to the grieving process being so hard, is that it's a complete change in the person of who you are. Plus you're navigating that with someone else who's also going through a grieving process and trying to figure out what life looks like moving forward too. And I think this is what makes grieving so hard, and can lead to all these little challenges that start to arrive, especially in relationships with those you love and care about so much.
Oof, yeah. Now, death could be very challenging. and especially affecting a lot of, a lot of things that are going right, in your life, and all of a sudden it comes and it destroys all of that.
Mhm.
So, do we have any healthy ways to grieve as a family while we addressing these unresolved disagreements that we might have had, earlier when we caring for our sick loved one until their death? Now we were stressed and all of this. So, do you have anything that you can recommend, which is a healthy way of grieving?
I think it is also interesting because I actually had a patient yesterday who I think it was like a little sign of like this topic that we had coming up, who literally had this exact incident happen. Had a family member, her mom actually passed like a few days ago, and the funeral was in a couple days. And she was literally talking about like how the dynamics in her family changed, not just between her siblings, but also her mother's siblings that were also now being intimately involved in like the grieving process, and how her family member actually called her brother and was like, "I don't want you overreacting at the funeral." It's like berating her before the funeral, and it's just kind of like, wait a minute, how are you going to tell someone how to act? But again, this is an older sibling who's taking a protector role and trying to protect her. But this person is viewing this as like rejection. It's like, how are you going to tell me how to grieve my own mother's passing? And I don't even get a say in what's going on, but yet you're already trying to dictate the. And it's just like, and then I mean, so this is where like when we think about grieving, all these little wounds start coming up. You start getting like sibling, especially like I know you. I was listening to a podcast. You're an oldest sibling, and so the oldest sibling, our job is to protect our younger siblings. We're kind of that dynamic, as you were talking about,
Oh,
between parents and kiddos, and we're the
yeah.
firstborn. I'm a firstborn too, and so as a protector, we want to protect our younger siblings, especially those of us who are like, especially the bigger the age gap, the more you want to protect them. And now that the parent is gone, you now take on that role. But part of growing up is going through the different stages of, I don't ever say like different stages of dependence. You have the codependent stage, which is where I do things to kind of meet your needs. But as we get older, part of the maturation process is us learning to develop interdependent relationships, not just codependent relationships where I tell you what to do and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do what you say because I know you're the leader. But it's like, wait a minute, we are both leaders here. And so one of the first things I actually told this person was really the first step of grieving is having a neutral party, ideally a therapist or psychiatrist, someone you
Mhm.
can literally just talk to and talk about all the concerns that you're having that come up for you. Because so many times in life, people never actually address the concerns they're having. It just swirls in their brain and thoughts are just going and going and going. And literally, the first thing I tell people now, I want you to just talk. I'm going to sit here and document what you're saying. You just talk. And then once everything is out, we're going to sit here and put problem one. We're going to list these out, not necessarily in order of most severe, but I want you to put on a piece of paper. We're going to do this right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are the 5 things you're struggling with in this relationship right now? Because putting things on paper allows you to have clarity. Because so many times it's just coming out and it's all jumbled and none of it makes sense, but you can't work through anything if you literally haven't written it down. So sometimes that first step is getting that support, but just to listen, let's just get it all out. And then
Yeah.
let's take that next step and actually organize it. Because what I see happening is a mix of two. Sometimes people are doing catharsis where they're just talking and talking and talking, but talking only helps about this much. Yes, you feel good,
Mm.
like it's getting it off your chest, but then what? Now it's just all floating around. And this is where I hear people talk about therapy doesn't help, just makes me worse. Because yes, all you're doing is releasing it and bringing everything up, but then not moving on to the next step with it, working through it. And so catharsis
Yeah.
is helpful talking about it, but now we need to help you organize this so that when you do have those difficult encounters with your family members, you have a game plan. You're not just feeling all this pain and being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so mad at my brother right now because da, da, da." It's like, no, no, no. We have to
Mm,
be able to help
mm,
you work through this pain and realizing that anger is a protector. It's protecting from those deeper emotions that are coming up that you're just like struggling with and don't know how to deal with. And it's coming out as anger because you're pushing people away because you're trying to protect yourself.
mm, mm. What I'm picking up from this discussion now is, because of this element of anger, it will be difficult to have a constructive conversation with somebody else that you're angry with. So having a mediator most of the time helps, and like a psychiatrist like yourself, being there to mediate between the two of you could be helpful. And now, if it's anger, would you say maybe wait for some time until you cool down? to talk to your sibling or to whoever you know you're not in terms with. And if that doesn't work out, then you get a mediator to come through and help you.
Mhm.
What do you think?
And so, really, it's about the dynamics of the two people. Because if
Mm,
person A is angry, but person
mm,
B is calm, the calm
mm,
person, just by being calm and being an observer of that person's anger, is enough for that person to feel safe and the anger to diffuse. Because people are
mm,
almost considered to be like onions. That outer layer is anger, irritability, frustration, mad, and that's your protector. It's pushing people away because you don't feel safe. But if the person does not react to that anger that you're displaying, all of a sudden anger is able to fall away. And you're like, oh, I'm actually feeling sad, and that person's able to meet you at that sad level, and all of a sudden you guys are able to have a more in-depth conversation. And so it really has to do with what's being met with what. If the anger person meets another person with anger and says, how dare you tell me that, now nobody's listening, we're all just reacting to distressing emotions. But if
yeah.
someone's willing to listen, whether it's that third person that's like, well, let's take a step back, let's calm the situation a little bit, or if it's that sibling that's able to say, I can see how frustrated you are, and they meet you with kindness and love and compassion, that can be enough to diffuse the situation, and you guys can have a constructive
Mm.
conversation.
That's a good advice there. Thank you for that. So now let's see. I just want to talk more on your current statement there. How could now siblings distinguish between grief-driven reaction like sadness, anger, and guilt, and patterns that are perpetuating conflict? How can they distinguish it? And as soon as they can see that, then they will know how to de-escalate, the
Mhm.
situation.
And so I heard two questions. One, you were talking about like the emotions the person's feeling, the anger, grief, sad, and I missed the second part of the question.
So sadness, anger, and guilt.
Mhm. And so, one of the foundational things that I teach people is understanding and being able to understand themselves. Because the better you understand yourself, the better you're able to understand the people you're interacting with. It actually reminds me of like I was with my family this weekend, and one of my cousins, these are like my dad's cousins. So it's like, anyway. And he looked at me and he was like, so I used to work for the military and I used to read all these people's bios. And how do you know when people are just like making stuff up and just lying to your face? And I
Mm,
looked at him and I was like, the way people interact is a game. And that's how I view it. If you
mm,
can understand the rules of the game and understand why people are behaving the way they behave, you're able to
mm,
take a step out of the game and observe what's going on. And all of a sudden, the game falls away and you just have the authentic person in front of you. Emotions are the same way. Once you're able to understand your own emotions, you're able to understand when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling frustrated, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling grief, because you're able to do that internal work and understand that, you're suddenly able to not only step out of the game you play with yourself, but the game you're playing with other people. And so I consider emotions to be like learning how to read. Like literally, if you can't decode the alphabet, if you don't know the letter A and you can't sound out the letters, you can't even decode reading. And so you have to be able to read yourself and read other people so that when you get in these tense situations, you have a baseline set of skills to be able to help you navigate those situations. That's really what's needed is the skill set. And sometimes we get in these very tense, stressful situations, parents passing, a sibling passing, and all of a sudden, we haven't developed the foundational skills on how to calm and soothe and heal our own internal pain. And so it's just erupting into this like emotion fused thing where no one's listening and everyone's just reacting to other people's emotions. And that's where all this tension starts to build. And so it's really helping people at the foundational level of being able to understand their own experiences so they can step out of that distressing game and be able to have calm, present conversations with their people.
mm. Very, very informative. Thank you. And if you're joining on Telegram, welcome. And we're looking forward to your comments. And if you have any questions, please raise your hand there, and the doctor will be available to answer your questions or your comments for that matter. Because this is a very touchy subject, about siblings. And although this works in both ways, not only just siblings, marriage, mates, and families, and colleagues, but today we're talking about siblings because siblings are the core of the communities. are the core of a family. If the mother and father have grown old and there come a time that they're not there anymore, we are there to, carry on with the name of the family, and also the culture or whatever, that we are known for, that the parents have built through the years. So if the siblings are not there together, um, that is being destroyed. So hence we're talking about this, and very touchy. So please, if you want to comment, please do so. Now back to you, Doc. We spoke about a lot of things that may cause, siblings to have tension. And one of the things that maybe we can also, elaborate further on is perceived favoritism or unresolved promises or different narratives that we might have. How could siblings navigate competing memories of the parents in regards to that?
I think this is actually so. One of my favorite sayings about memories is the only thing. So the only I'm probably going to butcher it, but anyway, the
Mhm.
past only lives in our very imperfect memories. And so memory is very changeable. It's not the truth, but it's our truth. And so when people view things as, well, this is what I remember, this is what I remember, we're already talking about something that's already changeable and malleable, and it's not actually what happened in the past in the first place. So I think first allowing ourselves to recognize that memory is fallible. Memory is not the truth, but it's what we recall that has a lot of emotional resonance with us. It has a lot of emotional meaning to us. So that's what we recall.
Mhm.
But here's the thing when it comes to memory. Memory starts to trigger our own distressing emotions. But what we have to remember about our emotions is our emotions are based upon our own traumas of the past. And when it comes to our relationship with our parents, unfortunately, nothing is more traumatizing than the relationships we have with our parents. Because part of the trauma experience, and I don't mean like abusive relationships, traumas are just things that were distressing to us. I can remember my own like really distressing emotion regarding my own mother growing up, which as I processed it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my own emotions just like running wild. So growing up, my brother was an amazing gymnast, like top of the nation, like went to college, was number one gymnast in the US, like an amazing gymnast growing up. My sister, an amazing athlete. Me, I sucked. I couldn't do anything. So honestly, in my brain, what I remember growing up is I was at the gym all the time with him. So, I mean, when you're that level gym, you're training 5, 6 days a week. But as a person who was not athletic at all, I spent most of those years sitting next to my mother on the bench watching my siblings. And I'm like, why can't I do that? My thought was I wasn't good enough. So I have to
Mm.
watch them be good because I'm not good enough to do any of that. And I'm so bad that my mother doesn't even watch me do like the bad stuff because I'm not good enough and I embarrass her. You have these two star siblings doing all these amazing things, winning all these amazing prizes, and then you have this one that can't do anything. And so in my brain, I judge that as my mother just doesn't like me. She's just embarrassed of me, but she loves them. So she gives them all this. That's why we spend all this time watching them all weekend. That's my interpretation. Now, when I tell my brother
Wow.
that, he's probably like, huh? That's what happened? He has no idea. And so my mother's very much alive and very healthy. But imagine us having a discourse about that, saying, well, she loved you more than me because da da da. That's my
Mhm.
interpretation. That's my memory. But in reality, when I actually look back at what happened was, it's actually that I didn't want to do those things. I'm a very afraid person. I like to say I have good sense. You want me to do what? You want me to take my body and swing it around? I'm not doing that. That does not look safe. Versus my siblings like, oh yeah, that looks fun. Let's go try it. That's what
Mm.
reality was happening. And I was like, I don't want to do that. My mother was like, you don't have to do it. You can come sit with me. That's really what happened. But that's not what my memory was telling me because I didn't remember all that until I really, really sat down and really processed it. And so much of sibling rivalry is their own interpretation of events, whether they're true or not. It's the emotions that I felt at the time. It was the projection that I felt from my mom because I wasn't good enough. And so when we're having these competing memories, what I'm talking about is my own inadequacies, not my own act, but my own emotion inadequate being activated. That's now being projected onto you saying, wait, she liked you more because we spent all this time doing all this stuff for you. And I can't have this one thing at her funeral. Her brother's just like, what? And so it's about a person being able to recognize their own truths, but also recognize where's the origin of those truths that we experience. Because so
Mm.
many times we project our own beliefs and our own what we wish were happening onto other people without allowing ourselves to actually say, what is the role that I actually had in this experience? Because ourselves being judged as imperfect, as fallible, as flaws is painful. And so we don't accept that as the truth. It's much easier to blame my mother, to blame my brother as being favored, to blame my sister. Look at all this stuff she did. She did nothing for me growing up, which is not true. But that's easier for me to accept than saying, I was just afraid to do that stuff you guys are doing.
Mm.
And so this is a lot of the grieving process, is really recognizing our own role, which we don't want to do because it's painful.
Sure. My own interpretation. That's that's hard hitting because I carry that with me, what I think is going on. But I did not bother to ask if that was the true that was the case. Sure. So we do have a comment there on Riverside, in fact, from YouTube. Fuzila says, thank you so much, Doc. This explains a question that I've held for the longest time. When my dad died, we had a falling out with my siblings. Being from a family of 10, that even today we don't speak. Eish. Yeah. Any words of comfort that you can share there, Doc?
One of the first things when I kind of started moving into my private practice was is studying community, because the place that I worked I worked in a psychiatric ER. And so the psychiatric ER functions as a community, because when you're dealing with aggressive, extremely distressed patients, we have to work as a team. And so my teamwork aspect that I got from working in my job in the psychiatric ER really caused me to start doing a lot of research on community. And community really is the foundation of any strength. When you start studying like loneliness studies, loneliness is more dangerous than heart disease, than any other cancer you can get, because loneliness kills more than anything else.
Hmm.
And so part of my origin is helping people develop communities, because communities is the foundation of who we are as a people. We are a social creature. Humans are social. We need other people. But unfortunately, our brains are also our biggest protector. And so we also, at the same time, while needing people, view them as dangerous and not safe. And so we pull away from them, which is to our own detriment. And so helping people reverse that is so important to me. When we talk about having multiple siblings, when we have this community that we pull away from, we're really losing a part of ourselves in that. And so that to me is like the most devastating thing, but it's allowing ourselves to start to work through our own internal distresses that leads to us having all these negative thoughts that go through our mind. Oh, they're just going to make me mad. Oh, they don't care about me. They're just going to make like I can just think about all the things like my own sister, who I love so much. Even sometimes she'll say something to me that's upsetting me. I was like, oh, she just doesn't love me. She's just trying to take over the situation again. And it's like, no, she has her own opinion. But it's allowing ourselves to take a step back and really observe what is happening here. And sometimes even taking a voice for ourselves. Because I can remember like we always get together for like our parents' birthdays. And the last birthday my mother had, which is in August, I texted my sister, I was like, hey, because again, I'm like instigating it, but I don't want to take over it. But I'm like, hey, where do you want to go for dinner for our mom's birthday? And she said a restaurant. And it took me days, even as a psychiatrist, to be like, I can't eat there. I need like healthy food. This is like fried food. And I was talking to my husband about it, and I was like, should I say something? Am I going to hurt her feelings if I speak up? But it's about being able to speak our truths. It's about allowing ourselves to be honest with the people that we care about, because it's in these like distressing thoughts that we start to have when we don't speak our truth, that they start getting opinions and we start getting opinions. And those opinions just cause us to drift further apart. Versus all of us speaking up. She was like, oh yeah, I've never been here before. I actually wanted to go here before. And it actually turned into a good dinner experience, even though I was scared to even speak up and be like, I don't really want to eat at this restaurant that I asked you to pick. I know you've spent a long time choosing this, but it's in our perceived differences that we pull away from people, rather than allowing ourselves to speak our truth, to be vulnerable, and allow ourselves to hear what that other person has to say, whether we want to hear it or not, whether it hurts our feelings or not. But it's being truthful in those interactions so that we can actually come together and be present with each other, not just keep pulling away.
Yeah. I just don't know what to say, you know. It's a very sensitive topic, but I'm glad that you're there to help us out there. Would you have someone, Hilda, on Telegram? Let me just mute her. You can unmute yourself. Welcome to the show, Hilda.
Thank you, Neo. Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez, for a nice topic. When you started, you mentioned something about anger. Sometimes the siblings' forgiveness is due because of the anger. So I've never seen anger as something positive. And you mentioned that anger can be our protector. Would you mind elaborating more on that, please? On
Correct.
how is anger our protector?
One of the foundational principles that I teach people is all emotions are actually positive. All emotions are here to protect you and keep you safe. But when we view emotions as negative and we try to get rid of them, push them down, the only thing they can do to protect and keep us safe is to take over. And that's where we get into the difference between what's an emotion, what's a feeling, and how do we truly have compassion. Because compassion means being able to see our own emotions as our protectors and how they're trying to help us protect us and keep us safe. And the more you get into actually understanding your emotion, you actually start to understand the concerns it has for you. And the secret is when you get to understand that concern, that's when you truly have compassion for it. Because we view emotions as negative. We're like, oh, that's just anger and it's pushing people away. So we also pull away and we put the emotion judgment on it, saying, look at that person being angry, shame on them, without allowing ourselves to truly have compassion for our own anger. So we can then have compassion from their anger. And in that compassion and that true understanding and that true purpose of being like, oh, I actually understand why anger is here and trying to protect all of us, that's when their anger diffuses as well.
I'm lost.
I can break this down a little bit more. Okay. So, what is an emotion? An emotion is an emotion is a part of you that forms to protect you from a memory of the past. And memory
Okay.
never wants you to be activated, for it to happen to you again, or for you to ever relive that experience. So if a memory of the past gets activated by some trigger of today, that emotion whose job it is to protect you gets activated and it starts voicing concerns. It's like a signal light. Hey, be watching, be cautious, cautious, cautious. But if you don't trust that emotion, which is anger in this case, the only thing anger can do to protect you and keep you safe is take over. And so that's when you start yelling, you get frustrated, you start pushing people away because anger is voicing concerns, but you're not acknowledging it. So all it can do is take over and start pushing people away from you to keep you safe. But if you trust anger, anger will be like, remember that when you were 5 years old and that person slapped you? Do you see that facial expression? That's the same facial expression that person had then. Then you're like, oh, you mean I'm now 40 years old and that person who hit me when I was 5, we're on the playground fighting, they have the same facial expression? Yes, they're going to hurt you again. And you're like, no, they're not. Anger's like, I'm watching them. When you have that trust in the emotion anger, it doesn't have to take over you. You listen to the concern, but you get to be self led and make your own decisions moving forward. John, I see that you're angry. That facial expression reminds me when I was 5 and someone hit me, but I know you're just concerned right now. And you're able to speak to that person about the experience they're having, not put your own emotional distress on top of it. Get away from me. You're yelling at me. I don't let you talk to me like that. Now your anger is just meeting their anger. And now nothing's going to happen. Now we just have two angry people yelling at each other.
So, yeah, no.
Can you now say, from what you are saying, can you now say anger can actually work as a self-defense mechanism? Because now that you are saying something, I remembered one of my managers, the anger that man has, he doesn't tolerate nonsense. So most of the time, you don't even go to him with things that will irritate him. Will that now say anger is a self-defense mechanism?
Correct.
Yeah, but do you have to
Wow.
react? Do you have to react to anger? Actually, what I caught from your statement there is anger is your protection, but you have a choice on how to react, right? So it just like your fire alarm. It goes off, and when it goes off, you don't have to let it ring the whole time. You can switch it off and then take action on what it's um, alarming you on, right?
Correct.
So basically, what I'm understanding is, yes, you can have anger, but don't let anger control you. You have to
Correct.
step up. You have to step up and then act on the things that make you angry to sort it out before it overtakes you.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Now it makes sense. But I was like,
It's much easier when I
hey,
walk people through the exercises versus I'm kind of just talking
yeah.
about them. They're like, wait a minute, wait a
I,
minute.
I was like,
This is
what am I doing today? Am I encouraging anger?
and that's the fear speaking up. Look, wait a minute,
Yeah.
anger's not safe. Anger is not safe when it takes over, but anger is a
Mm,
perfectly safe, appropriate emotion to experience.
yeah. Sure. Okay, we do have another comment. Lily, question: why is always the supportive one are always the ones getting hurt? And Fuzile, we'll come back to your question there. I've noted you. But let's start with Lily's one there.
And so when we think about the supportive one, I think we need to identify what emotion they're truly experiencing when we say the supportive one. The
Mm,
supportive one usually is the one that has the most emotion guilt taking over. Some people are tend to be more taken over by anger, so they tend to more externalize, yell, frustration, like command people to do what they want to do. Some people are more taken over by the emotion guilt. And so when they feel guilty, they take on other people's distress and try to fix the problems. And so it's
okay.
not that they're hurt more than the person who's angry, is that they're internalizing more. And so they're taking more ownership of the distress going on and it hurts their feelings.
Hmm. Lily, is your question answered? Hopefully it is. Yeah, yeah, no. So let's go back to Fuzile there. It says, now what happens if I have tried to reach out, but they don't want us to address the things that happened? Remember the first question about siblings of 10, now they're not talking.
Mhm.
The death happened in 2017, but there's still no way to resolve this.
Correct. And I think
What should we
part
do?
of interdependence is knowing that each person has their own free will in the situation. You can
Mm,
only meet your 50% of the way, and it's up to the other person to meet their only 50% of the way. But in your ability to be present with their distress, it's also being accepting of them. If they want to work on their anger, I support you in that. If you also don't want to work on your anger, I accept you for that too. Working in the psychiatric ER, I don't know how many people I dealt with who were like angry and frustrated. And I just look at them and be like, I know you don't want to be here. I technically don't want
mm,
you to be here too, but your actions, unfortunately, do not allow me to discharge you. And so it's just being honest with them and saying, I accept that you're frustrated. I get it. And I don't expect you to be happy with this situation. I don't expect you to want to be, but my job is to keep you safe and get you home as quickly as possible. It's not going to be the route you want it to be, but it's going to be the best way that we can based upon the circumstances that we're both dealing with right now. And so, but it's me accepting their reality. It's you being able to accept that you can't change who they are. You can't make them work on things, but you can accept them for where they are and love them for where they are and be okay with that. And that's the goal, is helping you understand what distress that starts to activate within you so you can begin to solve that. And maybe that looks like every birthday you reach out and say, hey, brother, I love you. I just want to check in and say hi with you. It's okay if you don't want to talk, but I just want to say I love you. And maybe that's all they can accept from you right now. But it's
mm.
being okay knowing that you can only meet them halfway. But part of that interdependent relationship that we try to develop with ourselves and other people is being okay with them being where they are
Hmm.
and not trying to change them.
I want to add to your comment there. If you continue doing what is right, it helps you. In the long run, it might help the other person, but for you, sleeping at night, knowing that you did what you're supposed to be doing, that is right, gives you a peace of mind. So even if they're not responding to you, but you've done your part, and if a second person or third person comes and judges the situation, they will say, okay, you've done all you have to do, all you had to do, which is right, and we don't see any fault on you, but we see a fault on the other side, and the other side needs to be helped. So that's what I always tell people, if things are happening in your life and you don't like them, let them not change who you are. You are the person that you are because of the experience that you've gathered throughout the years, and that has made you a well-rounded person. Don't let another person come and change who you are. If you are known for being a good person, continue being a good person. If you're known on checking on people, even though they don't want you to check on them, send them a message. It's fine, you know, to make sure that they know that you're thinking about them and you still love them. And that action will also diffuse, the fire that might be boiling in them. So yeah, that was my 5 cent worth. Not a professional though. Okay, we do have another comment from Sedi there. How can I deal with forgiving when there's no apology? I think this. Okay, let me read the whole thing. When there's no apology, how can I apologize when I don't know what I'm being punished for? I can tell that there's breakage in the relationship, but I don't know why. I'm concluding that I did something wrong, but I did not. I don't know if I, but I don't know how to make amends. Yeah.
What I would normally ask someone who proposed this question to me would be, really, it starts off with identifying the emotions you're experiencing. Is
Mm.
it the emotion frustration? Is it the emotion scared? Is it the emotion alone? Is it the emotion? What are the emotions that you start to experience when you're reaching out to someone who's not really reciprocating, and allowing yourself to really calm those distressing emotions you're feeling within yourself? Because when you're able to do that, it actually allows you to have more understanding of what's going on with them. And then when you have more understanding what's going on with them, because you have more compassion for yourself, you also then are able to reflect that compassion back to them.
Mm. Hopefully, Seri, you got your answer there, right? But if not, you can always post and then we'll read the question. Now, maybe a question from my side. What practical steps can siblings take to honor the parents' legacy together?
I
For
love this one.
example, if you like that one, eh? Yeah, especially, about memorial decisions, while also setting boundaries that prevent old wounds from resurfacing.
So, to answer the first part of the question, was it someone else? I don't know.
Sorry, did you hear something?
Oh, yes. I thought someone else was asking. I'm speaking up.
Oh, no, no, no.
Oh, so to answer the first part, I think like traditions are so important to continue on. And so, one, what are some family traditions you guys can either continue on or establish new, especially after a parent has passed? Can you all do some traditions around the holidays? Can you do some traditions around their birthday or special dates for them? One thing that I've always loved hearing is like the plate. There's probably a name for that. I can't think of the name of it right now. But like for instance, if it's Christmas and your mom who passed loved, I love mac and cheese. So let's talk about macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese. Can you all prepare as a normal dish every holiday coming up this person's favorite meal? Can you also provide them a plate at the table, even though they're not here anymore, as a conversation piece, as a memorial to this person? So everyone gets a chance to kind of talk about this person. They're not just kind of in the background, but they're bringing to the forefront. So you guys really get to engage and talk about and bring up the memories of this person who meant so much to everyone that's no longer with you. I think allowing people to truly bring memories of the past, the ones that passed, into the forefront of holidays and into the forefronts of like important celebrations, I think is a really important like grieving point for everyone. The other thing you had asked was conflict. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Um, yeah, what did I ask now? Practical steps to honor the parents' legacy. Yeah, while you're not, resurfacing old wounds. So
Oh,
how you have to arrange all of these things, talk about them, and but you careful that you don't want to resurface wounds, old wounds that maybe
Mhm.
are trying to heal from.
Certainly. And I think that just goes back to really understanding, do you know what are kind of touchy subjects for your sibling or an aunt or someone that's really grieving the passing of this person everyone loved, and allowing everyone to not necessarily walk on eggshells around it, but just allow everyone to have sympathy for that person and be like, we really don't want to talk about this subject, and will everyone just honor us and not being bringing this up as we're kind of sharing this day together. And I think just being honest and forthcoming with everyone to set boundaries like, oh, this is what we want to talk about, this is what we don't want to talk about. So everyone can make that choice to say, okay, I decide to do this. I will honor this person in this way so that we can all come together in a family unit and really kind of enjoy each other's company and celebrate, the passing of whomever we're here to honor as well.
Mm, mm. Right. Yeah, let's move forward. I think we need the whole half a day, if not the whole day, to talk about this issue, because there's a lot of questions that people would have, regarding how to solve issues. They have personal issues as well, that they might ask for your, suggestions and also how to deal with them. But because of the limited time that we have, we just, shrink it down. So, how should families handle contentious issues like inheritance, caregiving responsibilities, funeral, arrangements, in a way
Mhm.
that minimizes resentment and support forgiveness?
I think first, if especially if we're talking, let's talk about parents. I think that's kind of an easier one to talk about. If
Mm,
parents can have their wishes already stated out, whether it's in a will, whether it's written in some kind of format, that will really help everyone in the family who's trying to honor their wishes and honor this person, especially when we're talking about like funeral arrangements, especially when we're talking about inheritances and all those other things that kind of come along with kind of like sewing, like kind of putting everything together. The more that's
mm,
written out and clearly stated, the easier it makes for everyone to be on board and have, well, not necessarily be on board, but the easier it makes to follow a plan. Because now we're not taking, well, John wants to do this and Mary wants to do this and our aunt wants to do this. You're not taking other people's opinions and trying to meld them into one. So that's the first thing. If people can kind of do pre-death planning, I think that will make everyone's life that's following this much easier. When there's not a plan in place like that, I think this is where things become more difficult. I mean, you have in America, we have like laws about one is their paperwork, who's the power of attorney. So that person's going to come first. Also, there's also an order of like legally regarding like is there a spouse and then it's the children and so there's an order of like who gets say regarding like legal all that kind of stuff in America. But outside of like the legal parameters, we have like family parameters. We have like who's the dominant sibling. Sometimes it's not always the oldest, sometimes it's the middle child that tends to be the dominant. And so when you start getting more into family dynamics and how these things are going to be run, I think this is really the time we talked about trying to really get a mediator involved, someone that can
mm,
kind of say, okay, let's let everyone speak up, let's allow everyone's voice to be heard, and let's allow everyone to also have a say so that everyone feels included in these discussions. Everyone feels included in these decisions. And so everyone feels like they have a voice as opposed to just saying, well, this is what we're going to do. And everyone just kind of capitulates to what one person says. I think having a media can be really important in these situations.
that's more important. Yeah, I agree with you there. So, we passed the funeral, we buried our loved one, and now it's just us that are left. And we have to talk about these things. We have to talk about the hurt, that happened during or even before, because we can't carry this forever. It affects our children and the children. So it's just a chain effect that is never ending. So how could you advise um, the siblings that are going through that on how to especially discuss these sensitive topics, you know,
Mhm.
past the disease phase?
I think one, if you can have one sibling that kind of spearheads everything and says, hey, I
Mm,
really want to get together and has a clear agenda. Okay, I really
mm,
want to talk about mom her last 6 months of life, like having a clear agenda, having a clear topic area, and giving people time to kind of think through what they want to say about. Because I feel like what could be hard is when they don't have a chance and they're kind of like, I don't know when people are like sprung things on, like we're having dinner, all like, I want to talk about this, and no one had any inkling we're going to bring this up, and it's kind of contentious.
Mm,
So I think one, giving people a heads up so they have time to kind of think through and really process their own thoughts and emotions and feelings about a situation. And if you can at least give them like hey, I want to talk about A, B, C, and D, this will really give them some time to kind of get their teeth into and really kind of think about and talk to their friends or talk to their therapist or talk to a third party person about their own experiences so that when they bring it to the collective whole, when they bring it to the community, when they bring it to their siblings or whomever they're talking with, it's not raw. It's a little bit filtered and they've had a chance to kind of process it and think through it and really be able to state their opinions. I'm a big fan of writing things down. I always do, but please write it down. Because sometimes when you're in
mm,
a group setting, you guys are all talking about things, all of a sudden your opinions start to kind of, what was my thought about this? You don't remember. And then you get home, you're like, oh, I never even said my piece. No one ever heard what I had to say. And it's because some of your distressing emotions really started kind of making your brain kind of start to
mm,
just kind of forget. And so if
mm,
you can
mm.
really write this down, I think this can all be helpful and let someone, when you're having these difficult conversations, one, have a prepared conversation, give people time to kind of think about it. Everyone come with something written down, and then everyone kind of say their piece and their thoughts process. You guys can process through it and work through it as a family.
Mm. I'm very big on prayer. I don't know. It's just me. If I go through emotions, um, I think prayer balances me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me a different perspective of the situation, even though the situation might not be resolved. But it's like you're getting another angle of the situation to think
Mm-hmm.
about.
Certainly.
And maybe one of the things that topping up on what you just said there, um, just pray about it when you're writing it down. Just pray about it and think, okay, if this was said to me, how would I feel about it? Because it's all good to write your feelings down and just read it as it is. They are your feelings. It is your head. But how will it land on the other person? Because now the goal here is not to point fingers. It's not to blame one another, but it's to mend relationships. So if you're mending relationships, how do you now talk about these issues? Do you just blab it out? Like, yeah, that's how I feel about you. You've done this to me. You never respected me. But if
Mhm.
you thought really hard about it and say, okay, this is how I feel about it, and this is how it hurt me. And I think if we talk about this now and see how we can mend this, already the second person or the next person who's receiving that already knows that, okay, no, we're not fighting here. Actually, we're trying to mend.
Mhm.
And that's a solution, to fix issues. Well, another 2 cents worth.
One thing
My
that I
advice.
always, when I'm in like clinic with patients and they're kind of
Yeah,
telling me about this person did this to me and that person did that to me,
yeah,
once I let them just kind of diffuse and get that kind of catharsis out, my first
yeah.
question is, what is the facts of what's going on? Because
Mm,
sometimes people there's so much judgment on what they're saying that other people can't even hear it because all they hear is the frustration, the anger, and the judgment is pushing them away. But first of all,
mm,
can you state the facts of what happened? What was the specific comment that was made? What was the facial
mm,
expression that
mm,
was upsetting to you? What was the action that they specifically did? Because we
mm.
should be focusing on, you should, I don't like that word, but anyway, what are the facts? And when you can nail it down to the facts, then you can say, when you said this made me feel X sort of way. And now we have a discussion. It's not a blame
Mm,
fest. It's not a you did this and you did that. It's a this is what the
mm.
action you said. You told me this. And then I felt really frustrated hearing you say that.
That's so true. Okay, we have sat down as siblings, tried to talk through the situation, but we're not getting there. We're not getting through to each other. So when forgiveness feels out of reach due to the weight of the loss, what interim goals are realistic? Like respectful coexistence during memorials, or whenever we meet somewhere, wherever we meet, um, what can we do?
Mhm. And I think this really has to do with what is the goals that everyone has for themselves. When
Mm,
sibling A views the continued relationship after the death of a parent, for instance, what do they imagine this relationship starts to look like? And then once you can imagine what that goal is for your relationship, then I think you can start to take steps to start to mend it. So, yes, you guys might be at an impasse today, but is this where you want the relationship to be? Or do you imagine yourself having a close, continued relationship with your sibling 4, 5, 10, 15 years down the road? And so I always think that goal that you have for yourself is really, really important. And you continuously allow yourself to take steps to try to get to that goal that you have for yourself versus saying, well, this is how it's always going to be. I mean, if that's what you want, that's fine. But most people don't want that for themselves or for their children or their grandchildren as they want these family units to stay together. So I think really focusing on that future goal you have for yourself and allowing yourself at every interaction, how can I further reach this goal that we have for ourselves?
mm. Being siblings, Dr. Nicole, it's such a blessing. It's not something to be undermined. It's a blessing. And this is what I found when I was doing some research. It says siblings share a long, intimate history, battles, betrayals, rivalries, and moments of care. And that depth can make hurt feeling personal and enduring. And then we often rely on siblings for lifelong labels like big sister, troublemaker, or a peacemaker. And when those roles are violated, it disrupts foundational beliefs about the family. But now, there's some stats that are also found, and yeah, those are shocking stats, right? And I want to share with everyone here. It says here data from 2023 Social Health Survey indicated that 47% of adults who pursued reconciliation with a sibling reported improved mental health outcomes, including reduced anxiety and better sleep after facilitated dialogue. And we're coming back to what you just said, that you need somebody to mediate, because obviously the two of you were not able to come together and reconcile. But if there is somebody to mediate, and it helps you. Now imagine when that has been resolved, the sleep that you get, the mental health wellness that you go through, you look at life positively.
Mhm.
Things are not crumbling on the sides, but because you were able to achieve that goal. It's such a profound thing. And I thought this could be helpful to our audience. Do all you can, to make amends, or get a mediator, to help you come together as a family. I mean, you grew up together. Like I said, you've built memories, and those memories can never be taken away from you. So, would you rather lose those memories, dump them, or shelve them as unimportant, or would you like to relive those moments in your lifetime? Yeah, Doc. I'm not
Oh,
trying to talk.
I mean, I always just think about like when you're on your last day, what do
Yeah.
you ask for? People want to see the people they care the most about. You want those last memories to
Mm,
be with your family. And if you
mm,
have this fractured relationship that has never been mended, nothing is
mm,
sadder. Nothing is more heartfelt than not having those people you love with you that very last day of your life. Because that's what this
yeah,
is all about. It's about
yeah,
having those relationships that mean so much to you at the end of the day. And so what matters? The people you love. Nothing else matters more than that. So
yeah. That's true. Doc, can you believe that we're almost running out of time?
I can't there's already 54 minutes. No, I can't.
Wow, we only left with 3 minutes. I cannot believe it. But yeah, this has been a captivating, discussion that we just had. And there's some few takeaways that maybe I can share with everyone here. I've got them down here. Let me get them quickly. I just had them now. Yeah. Start small. Initiate boundary aligned, honest conversation at a time when both can listen. Name the hurt and the impact, then outline concrete steps of rebuilding trust, which is good then, right? Not only are you pointing fingers, but you outlining steps that we can mend our ways. Consider mediation or therapy if conversations stall. Professional guidance can help and offer structure and safety. So you need to prioritize your well-being. Forgiveness is a process and not a single event, and it often benefits from patience and self-compassion. So those are the takeaways that we can take from the show. I guess there's a lot more that we can take from the show, and I really think thinking about these things can be helpful. But in any case, thank you for joining us on this candid exploration of the sibling forgiveness. And we delved into why the hurt runs deep, especially between siblings. We shared practical steps on to start healing. And we also had Dr. Nicole there about compassion, real world approaches to move forward. So let's think about those things and prayerfully think how we can, mend our ways. If you're watching live, reflect on one action you want to take this week to support reconciliation with a sibling. Write it down. And if you're viewing later, share your next step in the comments and we'll bring them up onto our ongoing discussion. So stay connected with us for more conversation and relationships, mental health, and the healing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your siblings. They are the only siblings that you have in this world. Love them like you love yourself. Thank you, Dr. Nicole. And thanks to everyone that connected on YouTube and also on Telegram. I'm hoping to see you next time. My name is Neo Morapedi, the host of NMP Talk Show, and we are signing out.